Yes, welcome to the 110th edition of the Wednesday broadcast of the No State Project here from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. Because if you dare challenge the orthodoxy, if you challenge the legitimacy of government, you don't live in a house. You live in a compound, a fortified compound. You don't have a basement. No, you've got an underground bunker because they have to paint you in a light to discourage any kind of anybody taking what you say seriously. So they got to shoot the messenger. So let you think that you're some kind of bomb throwing lunatic. But I'm glad to be with you here. The website, of course, markstevens.net. Much love and thanks to those who continue to support the show. This show is brought to you, of course, by Chris and Dan in New Hampshire, and Bill in New Hampshire, and Nelson in Maine, Eyal in Israel, Don. And I know I'm missing one or two people, but I'm sorry about that. I do appreciate everyone tuning in and supporting the show. I got a lot of stuff to get to. I did release another video today, and I apologize. I didn't do any editing. I know a couple of moments, a second, 2 or 3 seconds got cut off at the end of the video, and the video doesn't start. The audio doesn't start for 8 seconds. I tried to edit it once I uploaded it, but given the subject matter, I probably spent 32 more minutes on doing that recording than I probably should have, which I called it Play Misty for Me 2, about a compulsive liar. And, I guess this gets down to just it's a personal thing, I guess. How many times do you have to respond? When is enough enough? When do you just cut the plug and realize that someone is trolling you, has no interest in a rational discourse with you, lies through their teeth, and moves the goalposts? I actually need to do myself a favor, and I need to turn off the notifications on my phone, because even though this YouTuber claims to not be obsessed, the amount of times and the constant barrage of comments, and we'll see if they're in here, like I mentioned in the video, Play Misty for Me too, very active on the channel. I mean, every single show, and the Saturday show, sometimes 2 hours, just lobbing insult after insult after insult. That's what she does. I still haven't really understood and got a grasp of how calling somebody a spooner is a pejorative. But I don't know, it's at some point you have to get to where it's necessary to just block them from your channel. And I might wind up doing that, or just hitting the ignore button. But if they do come on the channel during a live broadcast, I would say that the typical response should be just copy and paste this, because I absolutely will not respond to this troll on YouTube comments. And YouTube comments is really not where you're gonna go to get a rational discourse anywhere. I mean, to think about the platform. That's not where rational discourse takes place. I don't know anybody who's going to turn around and brag, I won a YouTube comment battle. I out-argued somebody on YouTube. So I've got I mean, come on. No one's going to be bragging that they won a YouTube argument. I do, of course, welcome dissent to the show. And I'll be the first to admit I'm talking about a subject matter that is very controversial. It's unorthodox, to say the least. And what I mentioned in this video and in the previous video to that, Play Misty for Me 1, is that when you're doing things through text, a lot is left out. Sarcasm, for example. And when you're talking about YouTube, things may not be all in a row, and other people throw their comments in. It's not as easy to follow. And when you have someone like this Play Misty for Me character who constantly lies and says that I'm ignoring her, that I just ignore her. And it doesn't matter, I go line by line. Ignore. Ignore to a YouTube troll means I didn't like what you said. I didn't like it. So I invite people to come on the show so we can have a real-time discussion. If I'm not actually addressing your issue, you can nail me on it. Well, Mark, I've done it. I've done it to other people. I've let them ramble on. It wasn't my show at the time that I was doing, but I let someone ramble on easily for 8 minutes. And when they were done, I said, "Is that a yes or a no?" And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I asked you a question about 8 minutes ago. Was your answer a yes or a no?" So it's easy to call people out when you ask a question and they aren't responsive, or when you raise an issue, when you make an argument and you expect someone to then make a counter argument and address your argument. If they don't do that, it's really easy to call them out on that. But the thing is, if your go-to thing is to lie that someone didn't respond, then everybody listening knows that you're lying. They don't have to comb through a bunch of comments on YouTube. Okay. It's right there live, or, they have the recording. And that is why I say troll, because if this was somebody who was interested in honest discussion, they would just call the show. Instead, this is why I'm saying I've got to change my notification for my YouTube channel, so I don't always have to get the notifications and see that profile. Moving the goalposts is something that's very common with dishonest trolls. See, the idea is you keep changing the rules, or lying that someone's not paying attention to you and not addressing your issue. And what you also do is continually move the goalposts so that you cannot address. You have excuse after excuse, and you can say, "Well, you're not addressing this. You're not addressing that. You didn't do this. You didn't do that." Yeah. Oh my gosh. So it started out. And this is what I'm going to say. I think what everyone should do, if this troll shows up again on the chat, and again, she's more than welcome to call 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020. You can sit there and you can screech, "He's avoiding me." Nope. You're free to call the show. I think everybody should just copy and paste, call the show. Every time she posts, respond with, "Call the show." Don't engage this troll. There is no winning. There is no convincing this person. She's not here to convince anybody of any rational or have any rational discussion. So what she did was, even though I clearly addressed 1,000 times the political question doctrine argument that she had, she's now changed it. This is why I want to throw the phone out. She's now changed it that I'm refusing to address and debunk the public question, or the political question doctrine itself, not her application of it towards my work. I have to now debunk the principle of the doctrine itself, which I don't have a problem with. I have a problem with her argument, which is garbage. It's absolute trash. So again, open invitation to anybody who disagrees with me. If you think that what I'm saying is false, I got my facts wrong, I got my logic wrong, call the big show. That's what we do here. But don't piss, whine, and bitch and complain on YouTube. Oy vey. So yes, that's going to be enough for the trolls. If you don't like being called a troll, call into the show and be honest. That is, "He's ignoring me, he's ignoring me, he's ignoring me, blah, 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 blah." So just to be clear again about what my position is and what we're doing here, what I recommend if you get a ticket or you get an assessment and how to defend against that, keep in mind we want to use basic principles of logic. Now, for those who want to bitch, moan, and complain that you can't use basic principles of logic and reason in court, they're wrong. They're lying to you. The burden of proof comes right from ancient Greece. That the one who makes the accusation bears the burden of proof. So they're just flat out lying to you. Have them prove it. The burden of proof is on them. So when they make a claim, whatever you want to paint, whatever they want to say that the nature of the claim is, if they're making a claim against you that you have an obligation or that you violated something, they have the burden of proving that that's true. And it doesn't relieve someone of their burden of proof when they're on the witness stand or they're in a pretrial conference or some kind of hearing. They're in court or any situation where they're making the accusation and they're being challenged on it. If they cannot show facts and that they have personal knowledge of those facts, if they cannot prove their claim is true, screaming at the world or at me that that's a political issue doesn't relieve them of their burden. If the venue that you're in cannot hear the claim that you're making, don't make it. It is a dick move to turn around and say, when you get to court and you have the witness on the stand, although this is in fantasy world of the troll. When you ask that witness, did you determine on your own that just because I'm physically in Arizona, your laws apply and gave you jurisdiction? And they say yes. It's a legal claim. It's an accusation. It's a claim against you. When you ask them to prove that that's true, when you ask for the facts that support that, I threw the word prove in just to blow this troll's mind. They're going to be slamming that keyboard. You said prove. But when you ask somebody for the facts to support their claim, and they don't have those facts, it means the claim cannot be proven, and it should not be considered. And if it's part of a court case, it should be tossed out. It's not credible. Having a fair trial means that only credible witnesses are given any weight and consideration in a final determination. To turn around and try to say, you are rejecting their facts, so I'm going to just speculate. You say, well, Mark, you're rejecting those facts. And if you reject those facts, we're going to speculate that. And the judge is thinking, yo, Mark Stevens, you're looking for facts outside the legal system. Yo. And if you're going to look for facts outside the legal system, that's political. No, it doesn't work this way. The thing is, you have to remember, when we are asking the witness for facts to support their claim, we're not asking for anything outside of the legal system. We're looking for whatever that witness based his determination on. That's it. The rest is just the stuff of the deluded. Because as I've said so many times before, the judge is not turning around and saying, I think, or the prosecutor, I think Mark is looking for facts and evidence outside the legal system, and that's a political question, and we can't hear that. So instead of saying that, we're going to just stop the cross-examination on grounds that the question calls for a legal conclusion. I tell you, you got to keep you have to stay focused when you're being attacked by these people. When these people, or when somebody is challenging the assertions or making assertions against you, they bear the burden of proof. And my gosh, when you ask somebody for the proof that their claim is based on, saying it's political doesn't relieve them of their burden of proof. It doesn't. And anyone claiming that it does is lying to you. So they are lying. So thank goodness we don't see any activity. Maybe, but I'm sure she's working herself into a rage with the latest video. Oh, like I give a damn. Someone's asking, is Misty another streamer? No, Misty is just a troll who posts my videos in addition to putting hundreds of comments on my videos and doing nothing but putting everyone down that doesn't believe in, oh, well, because we don't kneel down in front of Juan Galt like she does and worship the ground he walks on, the man who can't do any wrong. The thing is, she claims to be married, and I tell you, what, of a wife talking with the affection of another man the way she does, gosh. But anyway, she's just a YouTube. She's not a streamer. She doesn't actually make her voice known. She refuses to call or do anything like that. So nobody really. I've given far too much attention to this troll, and we need to move on. You guys are going to make me put the cones on. No one of any importance, but what's important, though, is addressing the same type of arguments that she or others make. So we address the argument and show that the argument is absolute garbage. And if those who are new, and glad that you're here, if you want to see documented proof of success that we've had in court, so my success that I've documented and that I've been able to teach other people who then replicated that through my book and my books and of course the radio show, you can do that at markstevens.net and under the success stories. There's more than enough documented examples of the motion being granted to, but again, you're going to hear people that will have no personal knowledge of the matters. They are going to say that there's one explanation. One, it had nothing to do with Marc Stevens' work, because Marc Stevens' work is absolute trash. So you have to, take that into consideration. The number here is 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with that there # if you want to join the big show. I think I'm all set to get our first call. I believe this is a new caller. We got area code 859. You're live on the No Stay Project. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Street King from Ohio.
Street King from Ohio. What can I do for you today?
Mark, thanks for having me on. Got a ticket, got pulled over. Cop pulled me over. I was in my brand new car that I purchased. It had the older car tags on it because that's how the dealership does business. He first approached me and said, "Hey, this car is stolen. Did you steal this car?" And I said, "No, man, I bought this car. Can you prove it?" Sure. I didn't have the paperwork in the car with me, but I had the insurance card from the other vehicle and the vehicle that I was currently in. I showed them to him. So he ran me through the ringer. He started getting slick with me on the side of the road. So in the midst of that, maybe a minute and 20 seconds into our video, I just asked him right off the rip. I said, "Hey, man, are you able to make a legal determination on your own?" And he responded, "Yes, I'm a police officer." I said, "Okay." So I let him go on down. So I already got my admission on his dash cam video. And we just kind of went through the motions. I took the ticket. I went to the prosecutor's office. I tried to speak to them. They don't assign any prosecutors until the day of your arraignment. So I asked her right there, what facts and the names of the witnesses do you rely on to prove your argument and that you have jurisdiction? And she just looked at me and told me to get out of her office. She said, "You'll know the day that we talk or on your court date." I was like, "Okay."
Sure. Oh,
so that's about where I'm at with this.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that process. See, what most people have reported to us here, Street King, is that especially at trial, I mean, at the arraignment, when we're at arraignment or even pre-trial, the prosecutor usually, other than their name and the name of and the title of the case, don't say a damn word. You can accuse them of being crooks, lying through their teeth, and engage in misconduct. They won't say a word. And anyone who doubts me on that can listen to some of the calls that we've done for years here. And you can look up my hearing that I did. It's all on video with Ian Freeman of Free Talk Live. And of course, LRN.FM. I'm openly accusing her. And I have evidence to prove that she is engaged in misconduct, that she is arguing without evidence to support, and her witness doesn't have personal knowledge that she relies on. Not a single word. So prosecutors know, and this is the way it's going to play out. You can get up there and ask for the facts. You can even offer the plead guilty if they have facts to make a prima facie case. And the prosecution won't say a damn word in their own defense. Not a single word. 9 times out of 10, that's what they do. So she just blew you. She just wanted you out of there. It's obvious because she said, "Get out." I do want to point out.
Yeah, I track.
Well, I do want to point out, though, I think it's extremely dangerous for you to engage the police officer in the questions on the side of the street. I don't think I think you take your life in your hands, and the matter, at the very least, could escalate. It may not be escalating to where you're getting the crap beaten out of you, but it could escalate, to you getting arrested and additional charges added, like obstruction. So the best thing to do is to keep your mouth shut. You identify yourself, which is always on a threat, duress, and coercion, and then you keep your mouth shut. These questions are for when you're safe and you're in court.
I agree with you, Mark. But I tend to have, I don't like getting bullied on. So I tend to open up and ask questions, not to set the tone, but to just let them know, like, hey, I'm aware. I want you to be aware as well. And that's pretty much what I did. I didn't go any further than that. The guy was he was mad. He was behind me while I was getting coffee, and he ran my tags, and he's like, oh no, I just run them randomly. I'm like, yeah, okay, man. But, yeah, I bought your motions, the packet and everything. I'm hoping that I'll go in there and show them proof of ownership, and they'll just drop this. But something in the back of my head is telling me they're not going to drop this. They're going to want to try and get whatever they can out of me. And really, I'm just there to mitigate damages.
Yeah, I think it's out. It should go that way. The prosecution should at least look at. So they charge you with auto theft?
Well, they started out as auto theft, and then it whittled down to fictitious tags. And I told him, I said this to him, and this is probably stupid for me to say, but I said, if you think I stole this car, I want you to arrest me and damage me. And he just looked at me like, what? And then he's like, well, I'm going to write you up for fictitious tags because you can't prove that the car is yours right now. And I said, who steals a car and insures it? And he goes, nevertheless, you can't prove that you own the car. And I said, you can't prove that I don't.
Well, why didn't he impound the car and charge you with theft?
Because he didn't have it. He was trying to threaten me with it to get me to confess. Like, oh yeah, I stole this car and I put the tags from my truck on here. And, I went from a Dodge Ram truck to a Prius. So I said, why would I trade in a Dodge Ram truck and steal a Prius and put tags on it and insure it? What criminal does that?
Well, I was like, you probably can't legally insure the insurance company unless you show proof of ownership. I mean, maybe I'm an idiot in that regard, but
you can't drive it off the lot unless you have insurance.
But if it was stolen and you have to show proof of ownership to be able to insure it, I mean, isn't there an SR22, at least in Arizona? I mean, there's some paper where you have to show proof of ownership to insure the car. But, hey, I
have all the banking work. I just didn't have it at the time.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's still a code violation, and you've got the goods against them. I mean, they're not charging you with that. You just have to defend against this fictitious tags. And, like I've said so many times, and it's in the motion to dismiss, based on how they usually charge you, and basic, the fact we know they're just men and women forcing strangers to give the money. They are maybe alleging that they may have some facts to support their allegation that there's fictitious plates, but do they have any sufficient facts to set forth a public offense of being, of violating the code for fictitious plates? And do you see any evidence in the record that would suggest that just because you're physically in Ohio, that the Constitution, a written instrument, applies?
Not a shred.
That's the way it goes. So that's why we argue that. And it is an allegation made. The police officer is alleging that the laws apply and you violated them, right?
Correct.
Does that strike you as a philosophical claim, a legal claim, or a political claim against you?
Political.
Come on. It's a legal claim. He's making a claim against you in court, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, if it was a political claim, the courts couldn't hear it. They'd have to throw his ticket out, wouldn't they?
Yeah, so I was just trying to be funny.
Yeah, I caught that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Messing with the trolls. So, have you filed the motion to dismiss and the discovery request yet?
No, sir. I wanted to talk to you off air about that so I can make sure I fill it out properly. I want to file it tomorrow.
Okay. Well, it's fairly easy. So if you do have any questions, you can hit me up now, or I can do that on an email. And that's for everybody. Anybody who's going in court and they have a question, they can call the show. I'm happy to discuss it. Let's get it right the first time. And you can always email me. My website, I'm pretty accessible, markstevens.net and Frank Rizzo 3 on Skype. So I actually need to set up a Discord, my own Discord channel, but we'll get to that. But what questions did you have regarding the filing of the motion and the discovery?
Well, this is all new to me on the motions end of it. I think I got a pretty good grasp of arguing or presenting my case about it, but just filling it out and make sure I dot every I and cross every T. I think by turning this in, they'll see that, oh, okay, hold on, he turned this in. Let's talk to this guy real quick. I'm hoping that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I have to go in there and slug it out with him. But I just want to make sure that I got the motion. I can't get real specific about it because I really just glanced over it. But I just want to make sure I fill it out properly.
Sure. And
with
just
your guide.
Yeah, right. And I'm happy to help with that. And it's pretty straightforward. What we're saying is that the prosecution has not submitted sufficient facts to set forth a prima facie case, that they have not, like in California, we say there's not sufficient facts to set forth a public offense. And yes, they're accusing you of violating the law, but that's not the whole picture. You have, okay, the big picture here is they're accusing you, they're saying their claim is the laws apply to him, create obligations on him, and he violated those obligations. And there aren't facts to prove, to even to support the first part of that. So the second part is not relevant okay. So for those who may not understand, relevance is key. You don't get to admit anything in court unless it's relevant. It may be true, but it may not be relevant because you haven't built the foundation. So facts that show that let's say the second part, that there may be fictitious plates, are not relevant if they don't have evidence showing that the code applies in the first place. A prima facie just means that they have met their burden to this point. They've established facts that, if taken as true, have any tendency to prove the proposition, which of course, you're being physically in Ohio doesn't have any tendency to prove that the laws apply. That's an assumption. That's why they can't meet that prima facie burden. So,
agreed.
All right. Well, I got a boatload of calls. So I'm glad you were able to get through. I will address other questions off air, and you're always welcome to call another live broadcast.
Thank you, Mark. You're a god, man. Thank you.
Well,
have a good one.
I appreciate that. I wouldn't go quite so far as to say that, but I do appreciate the call and the comment. We're going back to the Big D. We've got Tommy again.
Hey, Comrade Mark, how are you today?
Very good. Wow, that was a terrible Russian.
Anyway, I wanted to call.
Oh, wait! I learned some Russian.
I actually found what I think is an example of actual capitalism. It's kind of an odd one. There's a show on Netflix right now about prisons around the world, the most notorious prisons, and it's another good example of one that I watched before, of a prison in South America where they booted the guy out that I told you about. And this prison is in San Pedro, Bolivia. And it was originally designed for 600 people. It now houses 3,000 people, including kids, wives. There's pretty much no rules except you can't leave. There's 20 guards surrounding the prison and watching the prison. There's not enough guards that can actually go in there. If anything happens, they just shoot tear gas and you're on your own. And, there's a hierarchy there to a degree. There's one boss that's running things, and it's like anywhere. I mean, the bottom line is you're going to have a leader, even if you are part of a so-called voluntarist, I don't see it ever working without someone taking control of things. Have you ever seen an example of it?
I know they had the Caspian. I'm mispronouncing that republic that was in a small area in Italy for a few hundred years. Where from what I've read about that, no, they didn't have an elected, particular leader. But I do want to address this issue of capitalism. It's been brought to my attention that there are different schools, and people like to define things to such a degree. And given where there's some people that claim that capitalism, because it's the private ownership of the means of production, is synonymous with individualism, and that true capitalism doesn't allow for partnerships. Because that's common ownership. All capitalists is limited to just one owner of the property, so or one leader. So I wanted to know what you thought about that, because well, you know what, I'm not familiar. I don't have enough information right here to respond to what you're saying, other than what I did.
Right, I understand. It's just, like I said. Well, your question: how do I feel about you? Explain that again about having. You just explained there's going to be a leader.
Well, there's
going to be somebody that's, and that's fine. If you can have a voluntary leader. If you're in an area and you say, you know what, we're going to follow this guy voluntarily, what's wrong with that?
I got no objection to that.
And this guy who leads this prison, the minute they get there, whoever walks through that gate gets assigned an area to sleep if he's lucky, and he has to pay rent. And he has to, participate in cleaning the prison and helping making the food, and they're all on their own. There's no government support in that prison at all, not even to build things. They have to get all volunteer or donations from outside.
Okay,
it's pretty interesting. It's a really terrible place to be, no doubt about it.
Well, sure,
but it's not government supported whatsoever, except they can't leave. They're the dregs of society. They're murderers, robbers, rapists, and they're stuck in there.
Yeah, well, there's the issue isn't whether having someone that leads or manages. The issue is it voluntary? Is it something that they're forced to do? That's where the problem comes. But I wanted to because I know you had these people that were very at least articulate, and a few people on Facebook that actually presented a decent argument and were not contentious about it, pointing out that. Do you agree that capitalism is synonymous with individualism? That pure capitalism only allows for one owner of a company or the means of production?
No, because if let's say you and I wanted to start a company together to build some kind of a widget that we invented that we think is going to make earn us some profit, we could be partners. So no, it wouldn't be an individual. And corporations corporations are made up of people. Yeah. General Motors has workers that are part of the corporation. People always make it up like this corporation is this evil entity of some guy, and it's not. It's a group of people that work there.
Oh, I get that. I think the thing is the constant shifting of the line of the goal lines for what is capitalism and what is not. And so you got a group that swear that the only way that you and there's some. I think that there's logic to that. If it has to do if capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production, and socialism is common ownership, then having two people own. Well, is that socialism or is it capitalism? Now, it seems to be that the capitalism that the guys who claim it's individualism and capitalism are synonymous. What that does, at least to me, that no corporation is capitalist. Because nothing on the stock market, because you've claimed that the last bastion of capitalism is the stock market, and that flies in the
no. I claim the last bastion of capitalism is the futures market. the commodities market. That's the
Oh.
true last bastion of capitalism, not the stock market at
Oh,
all.
okay.
I won't trade in the stock market ever.
Because I was going to say, because any corporation or company that has stock is by definition socialist because it's commonly owned. That it's not capitalist; it's commonly owned. So this,
well, again, and a bad example bringing up corporations, because corporations wouldn't exist if it weren't for government being able to make laws and rules to hide. These people can hide behind if they create a product that is bad. But now that you just said something, this is very interesting. I'm glad you brought it up. The futures market, commodities, that is the true last bastion of real capitalism. You walk into that market and you choose if you think it's going to go up or down. Either you're right or wrong. There's no, and the account gets settled at the end of the day. Period. That is. What do you think of are you familiar with the futures markets?
Vaguely, but what I'm getting to, but the thing is, it hinges on, again, we've got many definitions, but it seems to hinge on individual ownership of commodities. But I guess at the end of the day, what's important is it voluntary? For our purposes, is it voluntary? I would say that no stock owned company, whether it's corporate or not, whatever, anything that is commonly owned is an example of socialism, and something that is individually owned is capitalism. And so, given that, Apple is not an example of capitalism. So people say this isn't an Apple, but when people say capitalism gives you choices, socialism gives you lines, Apple being commonly owned is not an example of pure capitalism or capitalism given the long-standing definition of it. But
well, I understand where you're going with that, and I understand also where your idea of what you call socialism is shared. Just like the kibbutz in Israel, the way they used to do it when they were first starting there, they had groups of people that they all helped each other. They shared everything. There's nothing wrong with that. That's communism, community. Okay,
that's communalism,
sharing everything. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'd really like to get back to, I guess, that prison situation.
Okay.
Again, that we all, none of us want a prison. Okay, and we certainly don't want what they call privatized prisons now, where the stockholders want to earn a profit off of a prison. I don't even know how the heck that could work. But that prison right there was no government support. Just you're one of the guys in society. We can't deal with you anymore, or you've done some horrendous thing, and we're not going to execute you. You're going into this place, and good luck. What do you think of that?
Well, I have no problem with community-run prisons based on basic principles of right and wrong. So when you've got, especially incorrigible, when you got people like Donald Trump who have spent a lifetime hurting people, you've got Stephen Myrie, that prosecutor in the Bundy case. People like that. When executives at McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon and whatnot. Yeah, these people need to be separated, and I have no problem with that. Something like this, where someone can take control, I think it still has to be maintained to be transparent, and people need to be able to see what's going on, because people shouldn't be just put in there to be abused, as much as some of them probably deserve it. We don't want this to be like Iraq or Saudi Arabia.
It's the worst place you could ever be. I mean, there's no guarantee of food, and the people at the bottom of the pecking order, a lot of them, there's drugs coming to that prison. There's nobody checking anything. It's a free for all in there. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I thought it very interesting. I certainly would never want to end up there. And one of the other ones they brought up was Joel, what's his name? Apio, that guy over there in the, with the desert prison where you're at. That was pretty brutal, man. That's just freaking torture to do to those people.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people that were in Tent City were not convicted. They were there because a judge didn't get laid that morning. or his girlfriend didn't come in to service him, and they denied bail to somebody on traffic. So a lot of the people that were in there weren't convicted. They were waiting for their trial, and they had to go put through that. And I live out here. I've lived out here since 1994. And I got to tell you, when you're outside in July and August, that can kill you. People die on a regular basis. And to be stuck out there without AC or not, that's brutal. I have been to Madison Street Jail. I've never been to Tent City, but I've been to Madison Street Jail. That is a friggin' dungeon. And those animals take someone who, like me, I'm not even accused of anything violent. They put me in the tank with the violent offenders. It was barbaric. They gave me the food. It is real and how they abuse people in there. I'm not. I didn't see murder. I didn't see Scott Nyberg and other people get murdered, but I saw firsthand how they treat people in there. It's not like the cops that get a paid leave. You sit in the dungeon, and that Tent City was definitely some nightmare fuel.
Yep. Hey, Mark, your audio is really, really breaking up on the caller line, so I'm going to let you go, or you let me go, whatever, and take on another caller, brother.
All right. Appreciate the call. Tom and the Big D. Hopefully the call line is not messed up, because I like to get through one show without a tech issue. At least what's going out over on YouTube there is good. So, somebody's saying that my Russian's as bad as my Scottish. Wow. Well, it is to you. When I was doing an Irish accent, not even Scottish. So, but I think I learned some Russian if I can. Yamashina. For those who get that, it's a unbelievably funny comedy routine. I am the machine. So definitely look that up. I forget the comedian's name, but his trip to Russia where he says, I am the machine, Yamashina. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, we've got Mac from Vancouver. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks. You recognize the number now, or does my name show up?
Well, I'm able to program that in, so I know it's Mac from Vancouver, British Columbia.
Awesome. Sorry?
I said, what do you got for us today?
Okay, yeah, you cut out there for a sec. Hopefully we don't have tech issues. I know I got cut off a couple of weeks ago. So I went into traffic court a couple of weeks ago. I had filed a motion to dismiss, served it to the cop and the clerk. They waited until everybody else was done. They pled everybody out, and the judge was really nice to everybody. Thank you for coming to court, reducing the fine and all that. And when it was my turn, I came, so everybody was gone. There was a break. There was me and another lady, and he said, well, if we go to trial, and you lose, you've seen people get a reduction in fine, etc. And just so you know, if you guys are going to take the court's time, then we're going to give you the full penalty. So the cop scared her into accepting a reduced fine. I decided to go ahead with it because I wanted to ask about my motion to dismiss. So now all the cops that were in court that day decided to stick around. So I had a courtroom full of cops and me. Well, there's 5 of them. I guess they were waiting to see me humiliate myself in their eyes and get embarrassed or get reamed out by the judge or justice of the peace, which is probably what he was.
Sure.
I said, and then, so first time I was questioning this, and you're right, it is quite nerve-wracking, and I didn't, I wish I could have gone further with my argument. I didn't know how to react. I stated the motion to dismiss, and then he goes, go ahead, tell me about your motion to dismiss. I started reading it, and when I got through the first point, he goes, well, you don't have to read it. I've read it, and now he started giving me attitude, was being a bit more intimidating. And I said, well, you've read it. He goes, yeah. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything else I should know? I go, well, it's pretty self-explanatory here. I'd like to know what evidence is going to be used, to establish that the jurisdiction applies. And then he goes, okay, are you done? I said, I'm done. Yeah, I guess so. And he goes, okay, motion dismissed. And I said, what are your reasons? Oh, no, first, after I read the first point, I think there's 4 or 5 points, I said, okay, can you rule on that? He goes, no, I'm not ruling on that. Finish your argument or your motion to dismiss. And he goes, don't read it out. Like, he basically said, don't read it because I've read it. Do you have anything else to add? So he kind of flustered me at that first point by not, I don't know if he's supposed to make a decision after the first point. And then at the end, he just said, no, I dismissed this. And when I asked him why, I go, what legal facts or basis are you using? And he just says, there's no legal basis here. There's nothing legal here. He said, your argument has no legal merit.
Nothing legal here.
And
well, let me try to make, give you my opinion on this. When the judge does that and says, do you have anything else? What I always suggest doing is questions. And
okay,
we want to question him. I guess here, like, well, have you read it? Not always a good way to start, and you didn't do that, but sometimes that may come out. Well, sorry, have you even read it? Because sometimes they've admitted they haven't read it. I had a judge say he was denying a motion that wasn't even filed yet, wasn't even argued. So talk about bias and prejudice. Wow. Yeah, I know. What I like to do is question him and say, look, well, has the prosecution submitted sufficient facts to overcome the motion? Because the motion's based on a lack of facts, a lack of evidence from the prosecution. Now, so that puts,
prosecution's supposed to offer objection to that.
The prosecution they can object if they should be objecting to them, and addressing the motion by saying, well, no, this is ridiculous. Of course, there's facts. Now, what the judge did was get around that with the douchebag move of saying that there's nothing legal here. He's just dismissing everything in the motion as if it doesn't have a legal basis. Now, you've seen the motion. Are there legal arguments in there supported with Canadian court citations?
There is, and I pointed that out to him. I said, here's a case law or this one, it cites this case here, and I said the name of the case.
Oh, I guess that's not legal. Maybe he was watching this obsessed troll and was thinking to himself, well, there's nothing legal here. This is all political.
I don't know what he was thinking. I think he was just intimidating by saying, no, you don't have any, there's no legal, I can't remember the exact grounds for this motion. He just basically, I don't know if he used the words, he basically said it was ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Well, let me just give people kind of an, for those who are new, who may not be familiar with this. One of the points in the motion to dismiss is, and it's based, and we have court cases to support this, that the Canadian court system, like the United States court system, is adversarial, and they have to have what is called a valid cause of action or case before the court. Now, a case or cause of action is not synonymous with complaint. The complaint is just the mechanism, the tool that they have to set forth their cause of action. Okay, so they put their claim in there, their cause, or their case. Now, under Canadian law, as we prove in there, you have to have two things for there to be a valid cause of action or case. And that's injuria et damnum. You have to have the injury and the damage. In addition to the injury and the damage, the allegation, you must have facts that actually support that. That is the legal principle. Now, they may be considered that political. Maybe he's just trying to put a spin on it, like our hero that's worshipped by the troll. That is philosophical. It's philosophical. No, it's actually right out of the Canadian law books. It's Canadian Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court. So the judge saying that, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and he lied. And he lied to cover up for the prosecution. So what I would do is I would file a motion to disqualify the judge for lying, saying that there's nothing legal here. Just on that one issue alone shows the judge was lying. To say that,
Well, let me, he basically said, do you want to adjourn it and get it, since I dismissed your motion, would you like a different judge? Would you like an adjournment so you can now go prepare for your defense? And I said, well, of course I would. So he kind of disqualified himself. And he said, I'll make sure you have another judge next time. And I've already got that court date came in today, and that's July 12th.
well, what I would do, this is me, I would, since we got another judge, I would refile the motion to dismiss, but I would put in there, the previous judge has recused himself and his grounds for denying the motion were frivolous and that he actually lied and misrepresented your motion. He may not agree with the points, but that doesn't mean they're not legal.
Okay. So do I do it the same way to the court and to the police officer?
Everything that you file has to go to the clerk and it has to go to the opposing counsel. If it's just a police officer still at this time, he gets it. If a prosecutor has entered, a crown prosecutor has entered, then it goes to them. So everything you file with the court goes to the prosecution.
So it says on this new notice of hearing, date canceled May 1st. I don't know why they put date canceled. And then it says disputant's application to dismiss denied, file adjournment to a new date, next date preemptory on the disputant. So that's right on the notice.
Okay. Well, you should still file the application to dismiss, or the motion to dismiss, and the discovery request prior to that.
We didn't even deal with the discovery request, so that one is still in play, I would assume.
Okay.
I can bring it up with the next judge.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to maybe file it again, but definitely put in the motion you want to edit in. I know this was already arbitrarily denied by the previous judge who recused himself, and it should be reconsidered because the previous judge said it wasn't legal. And that's not true. He may disagree with the ultimate conclusion, but to say it's not legal, he's lying.
And check this out, Mark. He basically said, I go, well, where's, when I question him on jurisdiction, he goes, well, this is not even a case for this court. I'm pretty sure he said, this is not even a real court. This is a quasi-court. Quasi-court came out of his mouth.
Did he say quasi or maybe quasi-criminal? Although I don't know if they use quasi-criminal in Canada. I don't know for certain. It's a quasi-court.
Yeah.
Maybe,
I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. There's probably no significance to that. I know maybe some freemen or sovereign types would, be thinking, oh my gosh, he abandoned ship and said it wasn't a real court. But maybe it's considered that because it's a low-level offense, and it's not like it's in front of the county court.
Okay, so should I put that, when I said he made an arbitrary, this motion needs to be reconsidered, previous justice of the peace or judge arbitrarily dismissed it, saying that it had no legal background or whatever.
There was nothing legal here. Well, I would say the judge, deliberately mischaracterized the motion as not having anything legal, having no legal, that there was nothing legal here, when it clearly does. You could disagree with the argument. You can say you're dead wrong, but to say there's nothing legal here, he's lying. That's just what they're doing is trying to, it's no different than these people that say it's philosophical or it's political. They're trying to avoid the lack of evidence to support the claim. So they just argue it's frivolous or they say it's political. That's all it is. It's a dodge. This judge lied for the prosecutor.
So what do I say the next time I go in on July 12th and they go, I'm not even going to hear this motion because that's already been ruled on. And they're going to, if they try to intimidate me, and I'm, the last one 2.5 hours later in the courtroom and there's a bunch of cops there ready to watch the show and the fireworks. How do I handle that?
you have to object. You say objection. It was said the judge deliberately mischaracterized it, and you can, and without giving them a chance to answer, say, "Sir, are you telling me that this argument is not legal when it's based on this particular court case from the Supreme Court? How is that not legal?"
Okay.
Again, it's no different than what these trolls do. You can disagree with me, but to turn around and say it's not legal, that is dishonest. It's not addressing the issue. It's dodging the issue. So all this crap has to do with avoiding the fact that the police officer has made a claim he cannot support.
Okay.
Right.
And what's this motion in limine? They're like, I guess we don't need to use that. I thought you filed that if this motion gets denied. How does that work?
The
Or
motion in
that's not
limine is
necessary yet?
the motion in limine is a pretrial tool to limit argument and evidence that can be presented at trial. So in our situation, it's where the prosecution, it's premature for you right now, but for those who have gone through the pretrial process and they haven't gotten the Brady material or the exculpatory evidence,
Hello?
I hit the wrong damn button. There was some noise from your end. What I'm saying is the motion in limine, because they are arguing without evidence and and their witness does not have personal knowledge of the matters they're testifying to, they should not be permitted to raise those arguments at trial. And we've had it actually granted before, and eventually the ticket was withdrawn for obvious reasons. I know there's arguments that the motion in limine wasn't granted. We have the documentation to actually prove it. So I'm pretty much out of time, though. So you don't have to worry about the motion in limine right now. Just get back. I would file the motion to dismiss again. That's the main thing. And get ready to deal with this BS that you're going to hear when you go in court on in July.
Okay, I don't know if you have time for the last thing. Like, I did file a motion for the disclosure. It's not called Brady up here,
Right.
But all they sent me were his notes. That's all I got. So I guess, do I have to call back another day to discuss that?
Yeah, what you want to do is you can get me on email, and I can address that in more detail. All right. But you want to do a follow-up and ask some specific questions, and I'll deal with that, on email and right before I end the show. Okay.
Awesome.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate the call. I apologize to those who I cannot get today, but I'm out of time. I promise. Well, I don't know, but we'll do our best not to mention the trolls on any more shows and waste people's time that way. But as far as when they just give you the officer's notes, you want to follow up and you want them to answer certain questions. Does this witness have personal knowledge that the laws apply and I violated them? Do they have personal knowledge of that? What specific facts are you planning to bring to actually prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the laws apply and I violated them? And I'm focusing, yes, on the first part because it's the relevant. It sets the relevance. So that's how I would do that. Get very specific. You should have a case management where it's like a pretrial conference where you can sit down and speak with the Crown prosecution and actually ask those questions, face to face, and confront them that way. So, and that's the thing, when you actually confront people, whether it's on the phone or in person, you get very different responses than you get on YouTube from the trolls. And that consists of, well, we don't have to prove that. Tiffany Castillo is a really good example. I don't have to prove that. The judge won't make me. So we raised that issue in a motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct, and all of a sudden she changes. Oh, no. We have the evidence. We can prove it. It's in the complaint. Really? What on the complaint proves the Constitution, a written instrument, applies just because I'm physically in Massachusetts? That would be wicked awesome if you could prove that. I'd love to see that. But, they're not going to put that in there. They don't turn around and say, Well, Mark, since 1915, the Supreme Court and the lower courts have ruled consistently that blah, 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 all that. They don't do that. So hopefully that's the last we have to address that on this show, unless somebody else raises the issue. So, but if you disagree with what I presented here on the big show today, hey, the number is 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. You're more than welcome to call into a show. And I am more than happy to record a show, which you can record from your end. And if you're really looking to discredit me, set something up on another live broadcast, and I'll work around my schedule, and I'll do it. I will do it. So again, I appreciate everyone tuning in. I appreciate the support of the show. If you'd like to help support the show, it is much appreciated. You can do that at markstevens.net or markstevens.sells.com. That's markstevens.sells.com. And I probably will not be live on Saturday. I'm going to do my best to record it, though. But till the next time we're live, salud.